Well, g'day, folks. How are you this very fine day? Have you had a good Tuesday? I hope your Monday was pretty good too. As you can see, my hair, I'm having one of those hair days. I've had a hat on today. So, Paul, thanks, Paul. I've just seen your message. I'm glad you've arrived. Unfortunately, tonight, you were the first one. 5:47, you got in early. Well done. Hello, Sandy. Sunflower, God love you. Darren Bergwerf is in the house, and some great news coming through from Darren over the last few days. He'll be on to have a bit of a chat about that. I've got to line that up with him before the end of the week. But I believe the log of claims might be coming to my place in the not too distant future, and that would be something that we would really like your input on. So if you're in my place, keep listening. There's going to be some good stuff coming up there from Darren Bergwerf and co at my place in the not too distant future. It is exciting times, folks. Particularly for my place. I'm not going to get too deeply into it at the moment, but my place is making a significant difference around this country. If you're not part of it already, or if you know people and you're part of it and you know people who aren't, then invite them, bring them along, get them to become part of this. It is really the movement of the future for us. Everything has to begin at a community level going forward. If we can't look after those closest to us, and I mean our family, our neighbours, our friends, our larger community, whether you live in a small town or a big city, it has to start with you and your neighbours and work its way out from there. Once we've got that communication, once we've got that respect at a community level, then the way forward, I think, will be much clearer for us. And we're going to talk about a few things. I haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of reading and research over the weekend and the last couple of days, but I have found out a few interesting things that I tend to believe might be the way of the future, given certain things that we know are going to happen. If you are a believer in the new quantum financial future, if you like, there is, I think, some exciting things coming on our way. If you're still doubting that there is a war going on and that it is a war that's happening on a number of levels that hitherto have never been used in war before, that's why we don't recognize them. A lot of what is happening at a level where they don't want to raise the community's awareness a great deal, because there might be those among the community who would stand up and support the evil. That just increases the danger level to the citizens in every country. So those of us that want to do the right thing, the danger would be increased astronomically if this news of this war were to get out prematurely. You would find there would be civilian organizations who would start rebelling and trying to support what they perceive to be the best side, I guess. So something that's going to bear out in the next little while. I came across a very interesting article, and we've talked about the Khazarian mafia here. Well, I think we were amongst the first, actually, to start telling you about the Khazarian mafia. And it is a pet subject of mine. It is a difficult one to follow because the deep Khazarian history, as with the Ashkenazi Jewish history, is very hidden. And it has become immeasurably clear that the deep state have spent no expense, have spared no expense in erasing their evil deeds from our history books. So when we look back at our history, those of us who have been in this game a while know that we cannot believe anything that we've been told about our history. We have no belief in it at all, for the most part. Sure, there was a war. There were a couple of world wars. There were a couple of other wars, skirmishes, wars. We always remember the wars. Do we remember the good things? No, we don't, because we're deprogrammed not to remember those. They want us to be at each other's throats. They want us to be divisive. And this, in part, is, I guess, where 200 good generals came together with other like-minded folks and decided they were going to try and do something about it. How do you go about dismantling or tearing apart and exposing, without doing damage to the global civilian community, an organization that has been lying to us, controlling us for the last couple of thousand years. Because it sounds absolutely unbelievable to anybody that would be sitting at home watching this, that we have been controlled, that we've been directed, and we would say of our own volition, but it hasn't been. We have been subjected to subliminal training, and eventually injected into slavery without even knowing it. We are the happiest slaves existence has ever known, and it's about time that stopped. A lot of people might think that if we were to stop that, then all the support from government will go. Well, that's not going to happen. I want to talk a little bit about what I think, and it is really only what I think. I've read a bit of documentation from others about what they feel is coming up next. So tonight, because I haven't got a great deal of intel for you, I want to have a talk about what's coming next. I'm at a point where I believed Donald Trump was found, tasked, targeted to become the person that he is at this point in our history. Who would do that? Well, there is a group known as Universe Management. Now, this is a group of enlightened beings, many humans apparently a part of it as well, and they are essentially the opposite of the Committee of 300. Now, the Committee of 300 are a high-up black hat group. They sit just below the 13 families. Now, Trump's group is 200-odd generals. I believe that this was formed, and it was formed at, well, to quote Trump, warp speed, at around the time where the pandemic kicked out. Now, a lot of people start moaning about Trump pushing the vaccines and associated other things. Well, Trump sped up the time frame that the deep state were working on. Our COVID lockdowns were not meant to happen until next year and into 2025, by which time we would have all been vaccinated, and by 2030, 3/4 of us would be dead. That was their original plan. Now, Trump came out when he found out what had gone on there, and you might recall that he shifted some weapons to Syria. Now, I'm looking more into that at the moment. Those Tomahawk missiles that he put into Syria were for a reason. They weren't there to work against the Russians. I do very firmly believe that Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Xi Jinping are working together. Outwardly, in the mainstream media, it will look like they are at each other's throats. Of course it will. But inwardly, those three leaders, I think, are responsible for the global coalition against the Black Hats. Clearly, they would be the three nations most heavily invested in it. And I can't wait for everybody to start saying, oh, Donald Trump's now a communist, or he's a sympathizer of some form or whatever. That isn't the case. When Trump hit the warp speed button, he was rolling out his vaccine, which we think, for the most part, was saline. We think most people in the world got the first shot and it was saline, we think. A very high percentage of the first shots in the world would have been saline. Not all of them, but a high percentage. But after Trump was gone, all bets were off. And of course, because he put the vaccine, or the idea of a vaccine out there much earlier than anybody on the other side had thought, they had to scramble. Then COVID had to be an outbreak. They had to get that started. So everything was ramped up speed-wise. They weren't prepared for it. They got messy, obviously. That's why we start to, see the cracks in it that we saw early on. Many of us saw them right from the word go and just refused to be part of their stupidity and tried to warn others. We can only do what we can. We can only try and warn. There's no point in getting upset. Everybody in this life gets to make a decision, and that's part of the choice that God wants us to make. This whole exercise, I believe, to a certain extent, is going to be an exercise in self-selection. or self-deselection. There are only so many enlightened souls who are going to see what's coming up. Only so many enlightened souls who will be able to raise the vibration, raise their frequency, elevate to a new dimension. And the rest will be doomed to living in a 3D reality until they die and believing whatever the hell they want to believe, which will be quite fine. I don't know how that's going to work for the rest of us, because we want to live in obviously a very different reality. But I guess we are still talking, in some instances, of a very long time frame for this to play out and for the world to really turn into what we want it to be, something where we are community-minded, humanitarian-focused, and we strive for excellence in everything that we do to increase our knowledge, to increase the benefits to all of mankind, humankind, not just the elites. And this once again gets back to a chat about freedom and what do you think freedom actually is. Many people have an idea of what freedom is, but nobody in living memory, nobody in our recorded history has ever known true freedom unless you are one of the elites, where there are no consequences, no rules, no laws, nothing. You are untouchable. That, you'd have to say, is freedom. And they have chosen to be free in some very evil ways. So God wants us to make decisions. We get choices in everything that we do every day of our life. Everything is a decision. Do I do this? Do I do that? Will I turn left? Will I turn right? Will I say yes? Will I say no? Does anyone regularly think about the consequences of those decisions? Because quite often, even what we deem to be small decisions have very large consequences. And that could be a great example of a stupid decision or a small decision to get in a car with somebody that you maybe don't know too well, haven't been watching all night. Turns out they've been drinking and they crash into a tree, killing God knows however many people. Now, that's a poor decision. Kids are very good. Teenagers are very good at making impulsive decisions without thinking of the consequences. We, as a level of humanity, as humans, as our humanity grows, we need to become more aware of the consequences of our decisions and how a consequence of 1 or 2 might affect 10, 20, or 100 million. Now, we need to be able to develop a community consciousness that we all agree with. Once again, this gets us back to my place. My place is a place where you can bring forward your ideas. Now, yeah, they'll be spoken, they'll be debated, they'll be rigorously spoken about. There might be things added to, there might be things taken away. That's what my place is about. It's about building a community that works together. And they do that by consultation and communication. Darren is amazing as a leader in this organization because the consultative process with him is, well, open door for just about everything. And if you aren't already in the My Place movement, I urge you to get a hold of My Place on Facebook, My Place Frankston on Facebook, or any My Place near you on Facebook, and go and join them. You'll be amazed. You'll find so many people just like you, just like me, and it's a truly wonderful experience to walk into a group of a few hundred people who all think and believe similarly to what you believe. It is such an empowering feeling, such an empowering feeling of community, of bonding, of working together. And I can't wait to help that grow further around the country. Anyway, let's get back into the Khazarians. So nothing's going to happen until Ukraine is cleaned up. All right? Ukraine and the Russia bullshit has to end before anything else can go forward. And when I say anything else can go forward, I believe we still have to deal with Taiwan. Intel that I have says that there are a number of dumbs under Taiwan. Most of them are to do with experimentation on humans and animals. And that means joining the two together, not doing separate experiments on both. They're trying to join humans and animals together, and that may explain some of the strange things we've seen washed up on our coasts from time to time. Things that have no real scientific basis, and some of them, in fact, look quite alien. There are plenty of weird things that wash up on our beaches that are unexplained, and plenty of weird things that come straight out of the ocean that are weird enough. But there are some other very interesting things that wash up on our beaches and are more than likely hybrid creations of some kind. Taiwan is where most of that, I'm led to believe, is happening. Now, is it too much for the world to open up two fronts at the same time? The Ukrainian-Russian conflict and a China-Taiwan conflict. What will that do to the American military? Because the American military are pretty weighed down with NATO at the moment in Europe. And of course, right now in Australia, we have a number of, a great number of international military. We have a number of ships from a variety of countries, a number of aircraft. In fact, I want to say 22 or 23 different countries in Australia at the moment, only 6 of whom, I think up at 6 or 8, are participating in the exercise that's happening up in North Queensland, Central and North Queensland, called Talisman Sabre. There is a lot more international military around our skies still, although less this week than there has been in the last 2 weeks. But still quite a lot of flights. There doesn't seem to be as many flights disappearing off overseas to parts unknown, transponders going off, but that is happening once again out of Europe. And if you go to things like Skyglass or any of those flight tracking apps and have a look at what's happening in Europe with military flights, you will see that there is significant concentrations of military assets in areas not really associated with Ukraine. So you could potentially hypothesize that those, particularly American assets, are not there fighting for NATO. They're doing something else. So that's a fair thing that's going on. And cleaning out the Khazarian mafia in Ukraine is really where the guts of it comes from. We have discovered that if not entirely responsible for it, then certainly development of the spicy cough was done at a biolab in Ukraine. There may have been some extra tinkering, if you like, through the Wuhan lab. There is also some mass production that happened in the Wuhan lab. We've already had a Pfizer whistleblower come out and tell us that the juice, the spicy cough juice, didn't arrive in its vials to Pfizer. It arrived in something akin to a wine bladder, big bladders full of this stuff, and then from there it was decanted into the Pfizer bottling system. Because the rollout was sped up so greatly, it meant that the testing, it meant that the quality control tests that would normally be carried out by Pfizer, not that we pay much credibility to them anyway, weren't carried out for this particular jab. Now, that indicates that, well, certainly the Pfizer whistleblower says that this fluid came in these big bags, was decanted, was put through the bottling system or the into the vials, and then those vials are meant to be tested in a variety of different ways, including a very detailed visual scan under microscope to see what's floating around inside the bottles. Now, that never happened for anything to do with the spicy cough. And when we thought that it was made in China, in Wuhan, came directly out of the Wuhan lab, we think that now is wrong. We think it was developed inside Ukraine, in a biolab inside Ukraine. Once they had the live virus or whatever it is that they'd created, this bioweapon, it needed to be mass produced. The only place that they could do that quietly and look at the gain of function work that they'd put into that particular concoction, that all had to happen at Wuhan. Wuhan then exported all of the juice out to Pfizer, and Pfizer then basically just opened the bag, poured it in the jars, and sent the jars out to everybody. That's how shithouse those bastards have been to us. So the Khazarian mafia control these biolabs in Ukraine. They actually control everything in Ukraine, as we've come to realize in a fairly short time. Now, there was a reason that Donald Trump, I mentioned earlier, that there was a reason that Donald Trump fired a bunch of Tomahawk missiles into Syria. The reason for that really isn't completely clear yet, I don't think. However, what I do know is that Syria were given a lot of warning that these Tomahawk cruise missiles were coming in, and they were told where they were going to hit, what they were going to hit, and more particularly why they were going to hit it. That's why there wasn't so much of a blow-up about that at the time. But what else was going on at that time? Well, China was starting to ramp up talks about Taiwan again, and talking about how much China is going to reclaim Taiwan and bring it back into the fold. So it's geeing up two fronts of a supposed war. Now, if you are not aware yet of the difference between the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States, well, here's a quick pickup for you. Trump is the commander-in-chief. Biden is a illegitimate president. There are so many ways to confirm his illegitimacy, starting from the day he was inaugurated, if you want to start there. There's a ton. So what is the difference between a commander-in-chief and a president? Well, the commander-in-chief basically takes control of the military, and the military answer to him. Now, not all military in America is answering to Donald Trump, but I believe the vast majority of it is, and I also believe that those that aren't answering at the moment are not answering to him because of the leaders in those particular corps. Now, they're obviously well set up for the deep state. But what's happening with the enlisted men underneath these officers who are trying to run this coup? I think that's about the only way we could refer to what's happening in America, a coup. These nefarious commanders, if you like, are well, I think they've been identified, well pointed out, and now their enlisted men are being told essentially what their orders are really for, and they are rebelling against the masters who are trying to make them fight. And that's what it is. It's about going out and fighting, being part of the NATO war. So from what I've been able to hear in the last 24 hours, there are a lot of American enlisted men and women now who are asking deep questions of concern about their leadership. And I mean their local leadership. I'm not talking about the commander-in-chief. I'm talking about the sergeants, the captains, the majors, the colonels, and the generals that are directly in charge of them. And these enlisted men and women are starting to fight back. They are starting to very much push back in their own units, and I believe are waiting with bated breath to be given the signal to go and arrest their commanding officers. Now, we've heard this story here in Australia a couple of weeks ago too, and we heard it in relation to the particularly Victorian police force, but I'm now reliably informed, and I say reliably with a raised eyebrow because I've got no way of checking on it, but I'm reliably informed by police in Queensland that there is an awakening happening amongst the force members there too. The people on the ground, the people who are out in the streets that were hitherto fining us for wearing bits of cotton and paper over our mouths or not wearing them, who were beating us, who were firing rubber bullets at us, who were sending pepper spray everywhere and knocking old ladies to the ground and beating them on the way past. Now, it seems the police force, in some areas at any rate, is having a change of heart. Questions are being asked up the chain about why are we having to keep pushing this bullshit. The mandates come off Queensland Police and Victoria Police, I believe, on the 1st of July. So Of course, recruiting for police forces around the country has died in the arse. Nobody wants to be a copper unless, you're an evil bastard, essentially. You might think you want to go and do the right thing at the moment, but those who are applying tend to be the folks who want to be wearing the battle gear and firing the rubber bullets. And in fact, in Victoria, they're advertising for just the people like that. Do you want to come and work with our rapid squad, rapid enforcement squad? Well, they're the ones who dress up in all the body armor. They're the ones who have all the helmets and the bear spray and everything else that they take to these events. And there's a lot of young men and women who want to stand up and be part of that. I would caution you against that. One day the people are going to stand up back at you, and you're not going to like the result of that. There aren't enough of you. Remember that. It's time you should be on the side of good. It's time you should listen, reread, retake your oath, and remember you serve the people. You do not serve the bureaucracy or the bastard government. Now, unfortunately, because your Freemason masters in the police force have complete control over you, and you're too fucking weak to stand up and challenge them on it, we have to wait until you grow the balls to do it. Well, grow your balls, folks. The time is coming. You police, you military, the time is coming where you are going to need to stand up against the tyranny. The people demand it of you. And with what's going on in Europe and Ukraine at the moment, I think this is it has to happen fairly soon. We are going to see a big crunch in the next 2 weeks, I reckon. Now, let's get into what that crunch might entail. It might entail the revelation that Trump, Putin, and Xi are working together as part of a global military alliance. That global military alliance will have one aim, and that is to remove the Khazarian mafia, all of its thugs, all of the people that enable it, and all of those people associated with it, and remove them. Not just send them to jail, but I suggest probably remove them permanently. And who would be against that? Now, Donald Trump, obviously, after all this comes together, if there is going to be some coming together, the QFS will play a role in this too. But what's going to happen with the power bases in the world? We all talk about superpowers, and, we've only ever known aggression, fighting, division, unstable situations. Everything could be tipped off to a nuclear war in just a second or two. As it turns out, that may not be exactly the case. After the well, let's call it the blackout, shall we? If we do have that 10 days of darkness, I think what we'll find is Trump will come back as Commander-in-Chief of North America, and that would probably include Canada. There may well be an element of control over Australia as well. We would fall potentially under the sphere of North America or the United States of America's Constitution for a short period. That would cover us for 3 months while we figure out what we're going to do with our own constitution. Now, I know Ricardo Bosi likes to talk about constitutions. I don't think he has a great idea of what he's talking about. Constitutional conventions cannot be held in a single country. Now, the only time you can have a constitutional convention is if it's a Commonwealth-wide constitutional convention. People do not, singular people do not write constitutions. The people do. And that's what the log of claims, in essence, is about, to get a list of things that we, the people, want in our future. Now, once again, not saying that John has got everything right there, not saying that you haven't got something to contribute. You do. If you do, we want to hear from you. So please go to our website, vofhq.com, download the log of claims, read it, talk about it with your family, talk about it with your friends, get their input, and tell us. Email us back. John's email's there. You can email me. You can email John at vofhq.com. You can email Carl at vofhq.com. You can email John directly, whatever you like. But give us that feedback, because it is with that feedback, and the more of you, the better. The more of you, the better. We want 100,000 signatures, maybe, or more. And I think that's very, very gettable. But we're not trying to hoodwink you. We're not trying to pull something over you. Go and have a look at the log of claims. If it's something you can support, great. If it's not something you can support, okay, great. Please tell us why. Because if we are going to be an inclusive society, if we're going to build community, if we're going to step forward as a group of humans, as humanity, then we have to sort this shit out soon, real soon. And maybe we'll get a few little helping hands along the way, like the quantum financial system. Now, we've spoken about the quantum financial system a lot. We have a lot of people who don't believe there's anything to it. We have a lot of people that are working very hard through QSI to try and put themselves in a great position if it does come through. They're not putting themselves in a bad position any other way. I think it's probably smart to try and look at what you can do to help give yourself a buffer going forward. Now, when the QFS comes in, we were concerned about a global central banking digital currency. The most recent conversations that I have indicate that that will not be the case. There will be a global banking trading coin or trading digital currency, if you like. I think it's going to be called Globec. That will be overseen by a group called the International Treasury Controller. They will organise oversight of the entire system. Of course, we know a quantum system cannot be hacked, but it's best you have oversight for such things. These will not be a digital currency that can be programmed. All right, Globec will be a international trading coin for large transactions, large digital transactions. We won't be using it as a form of currency for ourselves. In fact, what it increasingly looks like is that each country will be in charge of their own currency rollout. They will obviously have to have it gold or silver or precious metal backed. All countries have got to that point now. The banking systems are in alignment. We are waiting now for the Protocol 20 to be enacted. That is set to trigger on, I would say, a military or financial event, a big event. So keep an eye out for that. Now, when the system does go down, the fiat system does go down, the QFS will have a digital currency component to it, but it'll be gold-backed, it'll be unhackable, and it will be private. It won't be part of a digital ID control system. So that is the latest news we're getting out. There will be no digital ID control system. There will be no digital coin programming. So one day you've got money in your bank and the next day you don't because the government have decided to put a use-by date on it. So when I say it'll be a banking currency, it will be, but it won't be a central banking digital ID currency as such. It won't be able to be controlled by any central bank or organization or government. So that should give some people a measure of less anxiety, I hope, about what's going on with digital currency. So we are fighting on multiple levels for our side, most of whom don't even realize there is a fight going on, let alone a fight that is so important for humanity, not just themselves. And this is once again a consequence of how we've been trained. We are focused to be greedy. We are focused to be selfish. We are taught, trained, programmed to be inward-looking, not outward-looking, to look after number one before you look after anybody else. Now, I'm all for looking after you and your family first. But following that, go and meet your neighbours. Do you know your neighbours? In city areas, it's not uncommon to live 20 years not knowing the people who are 10 foot either side of you. If that's you, change that. Knock on the door. Invite them to a My Place. Think about setting one up in your street. You can have a My Place in your garage if you're prepared to use it. and call it coffee mornings. It doesn't have to be a Friday night or a Saturday night thing. You can have a My Place meeting any time of day you like, anywhere you like. But it's important that you start having them at a community level, because it's through places like My Place where you'll be able to gain this education, where your anxiety levels will be eased somewhat, I hope, because you will find people who've got knowledge of what's going on there. You won't have to run around and find multiple venues to get multiple pieces of information. What you will get is all the information in one place through a My Place. And if they don't have that information that week, they'll get it for you the next week. And simply because of the now almost national structure of My Place, must be coming close to 150 My Place venues now around the country, then it's got to be a good thing. We can only move forward. All right. What else is going on in the world with this QFS thing? All right. So when we get the QFS coming, we are also, I believe, going to get new phones. We'll call it a Q phone at the moment, but it might not be called a Q phone. Could be called anything else. Now, that Q phone is going to be a quantum phone, not Q for Q, but Q for quantum. It will work on a brand new operating system in a way that we've probably never thought to experience or never thought we would experience. It is being built with next generation technology. So everyone will be able to use it, and everyone will get a free Q phone. Now, well, when I say everyone of age, okay, I think of 18, it may be 16, but I'm thinking 18 initially, 18 and over, everybody will be issued a new Q phone. When you set that phone up, it will set up your new bank accounts, or give you access to the bank accounts that are already in your name that will have, something in them. So those Q phones will become very important, because they are how you are going to access your money in the future. Now, you'll be able to go up and get it out of an ATM. You'll be able to have cash. You won't have to play in the digital realm if you don't want to, but you will need your Q phone to control it, right? Nobody else will have access to your accounts. Nobody will be able to get into them. Even if you were to lose your Q phone, they still can't get into them. My understanding is, and I've only had a very basic rundown on some of the technology in the Q phones, but it was explained to me that the Q phones will have facial recognition and other means of identification. I asked, would that be like a retina scan or something like that? It could be a retina scan. It might be fingerprint. It could be handprint, because your phone will go around around the phone in a certain way. Apparently, there are a number of security points that you must be able to check off before you can open a Q phone, and the only way you can check off a number of these is physically. So it needs to see you to make it work. So that will give us a level of protection for our cash, and transportability like we have now. We can pay our bills off the phone if you really want to, and you will be able to get access to cash. There's also going to be a lot of other things we'll be doing with our Q phones. You will never have to stand in line, have a bad sausage at a primary school hall in the wet on election day ever again. Our elections will be held in the quantum environment, where they will be unhackable, completely traceable. This will change the way that we do government. We will not need to have an election once every 4 years. I believe that the people in your community that you lead, that you decide and you elect as your leaders, will be having significant input into finances that come to your town, your city, your region. Now, when it comes to the distribution of the funds in this whole system, I think what we're going to see is certainly some money being returned to us. If you think you're going to wake up one morning with $250 million in your account and, you know, you'll never have anything to worry about ever again, I don't think it's going to be that way. Initially, we were told we would get all the money back that was stolen from us. Now we're hearing variations on that story. So if you bought a house, you will not get back the principal of what you borrowed. Does seem fair, even if they created the money that you borrowed out of thin air. Because there needs to be some sort of a valuation on the land that you've got and you've owned. At least you will own it then. What you will get back is all the interest that you paid over the term of that loan and all the interest on any other loan that you have or have had in the past. Any fines that you have been given. I'm not sure how that's exactly going to play out in the criminal court world. If you have been given, or civil court, if you've been given a criminal or civil fine, you would think that too would be annulled, but maybe not. It's unclear what's going to happen with the criminal system yet. Clearly, if there is a reset as we're thinking, then this is going to have significant impact on people who are already in jail, who have been put there through nefarious means, or some who've put themselves there because they are just evil bastards who've gone around killing people. These folks aren't going to be let out immediately, but there will be retrials, I think. Now, I had an interesting proposition put to me today about the retrials, and that proposition is this. If you are already locked up in an Australian jail when this whole system breaks and we get public acknowledgement of the judicial system corruption, that then places into jeopardy every conviction ever recorded on our books, every conviction ever recorded. What does that mean to the likes of our worst criminals? That fucker that killed young Daniel Morecambe, for instance. He's Brett Cowan. He's the one I think of. What happens to that prick? Hopefully he just gets hung. That'd be a great ending. However, what I believe, and this is part of the conversation I had today, what I believe could happen is certain people who are in jail, depending on the crime that they've committed, will be given an early out, an early release, if it's proved that there has been some sort of skullduggery going on in their case. It might also mean that every prisoner is offered a choice. You can choose to have a complete retrial. You'll stay inside until the retrial happens, but you can choose to have a complete retrial of your matter. But if you do, be prepared for the consequences, because when this changes, so too will the laws or the punishment laws. Something that hitherto might have got you life might now get you death. So if you are a life serving criminal and you decide you're going to try your pot luck at this new system, this new judicial system, then it just might fall that you get found guilty again and are sentenced to a whole different punishment, one that doesn't involve us paying for you for the rest of your life. Don't have too many problems with that. So yes, the likes of Brett Cowan would be presented with a choice. Yes, you can get a new trial. Lose, and you might get a new punishment. That might mean the Hessian bag you now live in turns into a box. And that wouldn't be a bad thing in that case. I don't think. Wouldn't be a bad thing at all. So, yeah. Look, Graham, good point. You can't unscramble an egg. No, you can't. What you can do is drop another bloody huge egg on top of it. All right, so you can sit there cooking your chicken eggs, and I'll come in and drop an emu egg on top of your chicken eggs. Let's see what happens then. I get your point, but this has to be unscrambled. We're not going to be able to unscramble it. It has to come from military. It has to come globally, from a global position. It cannot happen individually in individual countries, not even on a staged rollout. This has to happen at exactly the same time everywhere, not just for what are probably obvious reasons, but security reasons as well. It has to happen immediately. A little bit of news on, actually, have I finished on what I was going to tell you about? Okay, you're right. Well, the QF, the Quantum Financial Phone System, or the Quantum Phone System, this is going to be based on our input, all right? We will be able to answer questions if we so desire. If you want to be part of your community, your quantum phone will get matters like large matters. Should Australia be sending aid to a country, to Ukraine, to whatever? Let's use that as a bad example in this. But at the moment, we've got the politicians and the bureaucrats who are doing everything they can to give away hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to these wankers in Ukraine, because it's what they want to do. But they wouldn't be allowed to do this under the new quantum system. Under this quantum system, we would be given the question, do you want to send another $30 billion to Zelensky and his mates? And it would pop up on your phone, and you would have a set time, maybe 24 hours, to discuss it and then give your answer. Will it be compulsory? I would hope it would be initially. It will make people good community members, not just, go along with the flow and then bitch and moan when the flow goes a direction they don't want to go. I think it will be compulsory initially, globally. I think it has to be, because we need to be re-educated into having a say and having it heard. So what happens with government? Well, we'll get a whole heap of money. Let's just say, let's use the Aboriginal voice as an example. $39 billion is sent to our Aboriginal controllers every year. $39 billion. Now, how much of that $39 billion actually reaches Aboriginal communities, actually reaches the people who need the help and the support? Very, very little of it. Where does it go? Well, you know damn well where it goes. Into the pockets of the corporate blacks, into the pockets of the corporates, full stop. And one might suggest the odd councillor has been looked after as well in different places. Well, that won't happen under this new quantum system. You see, what would happen in that community? You would have a group of elders, and maybe it's a My Place. Maybe it's something like a My Place. You will have a local town council. That local town council will be given their share based on a per capita basis, right, of the $39 billion. Then the local council will put in programs for those people. Then there will be auditors from your local community to make sure that the council is putting the money where it's best used, not just being used. And from those findings, we'll be able to submit the next year for more funding, or let's hope maybe less funding. Because if the community gets behind this 100%, then the community will organically grow. Yes, there will be funding to help, build with major infrastructure and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to looking after the people in your community, we have to start doing it. It's that simple. We have to start doing it, because it is quite 100% obvious that those bastards aren't going to look after us, and the current government are certainly not going to look after the money and make sure it gets to the people who it needs to get to. If you're living in that community and you find out the council's been given $100 million or $100,000, and then they call out for input on what best way to use that to aid our community, then get off your ass and have a say. And you won't even have to get off your ass. You'll just have to pick up your phone and hit yes or no. Or maybe you'll be asked, do you have a suggestion? Write your suggestion, send it in. Everybody will get it. And what's best and amazing, and what I really love about this whole system, is that it's 100% trackable. All right, 100% trackable. So if you have voted, if you've had your say, you can see, and they can see, that you have had it. You have been heard. You have been listened to. So, yeah, give it a go. Oh, Bradley. Yep. All right. Well, Bradley said no shit mobile phone's going to make me answer it. Look, Brad, I don't care whether you pick up the mobile phone or not, mate. Makes no difference to me, but I'm just telling you what I've heard. It's not a mobile phone like you think of a mobile phone today. I'll just leave it at that. All right. It's nothing like the mobile phone you think you're talking about. This will be the most powerful tool ever put in our hands. Ever. Don't care what industrial revolution, what great invention you think has been the best thing. This quantum phone and the access, the security that it will give us is the best thing we've ever seen in our lives. The best piece of technology we will have seen in our lives. To that point, I'm hopeful that we will see a bit more. If some of you choose not to use it, I couldn't give a shit. It doesn't worry me. It's your money you're not going to get access to, not mine. Yes, I know people have a right to be upset about mobile phones, and God knows they've used them to great advantage for programming us and tracking us and doing everything else. I can't believe that the quantum phone or the Q phone would be similar. Yes, I'm sure there will be elements to it where, yes, you may well be able to be tracked, but only with your knowledge, only if you choose. This isn't a control measure. That was a large part of a conversation I had today, because it has been something of a bugbear in my mind that it could become a control point. But yeah, will it be more secure than the Bitcoin network? I'm guessing so. I'm guessing so. Seems like we've got a couple of trolls in tonight too. Huh? It's nice to be loved occasionally. I'm just going to have a scan back through some of the questions. Yeah, Neville, loans and fines. Yeah, I'm the same. I should be due something. Not a huge amount, but although it all adds up. I mean, I've probably forgotten, some of my earliest. My first loan was a car loan at 18. So, yeah, I have had a few loans, not many, but a few loans since then. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time for us when it all happens. And look, you got to roll with the punches. We are nothing if not adaptable people, are we? The minds are open, the eyes are open, the ears are open. We don't believe everything. And if you're believing everything I'm saying, then you're an idiot. Do your own research. Don't wait for me to tell you. Go and do your own research. Don't argue with me about my research. I don't care about your argument. I couldn't give a flying about a troll's argument. Could not care less. You are brain dead morons, as far as I'm concerned. And until you can actually argue with an argument, debate without resorting to personal attack, then you're not worthy of mention. It's that simple. You exclude yourself from a much bigger argument because you're too small a mind to be part of it. Sorry, maybe you don't like that sort of terminology, but I'm sorry, folks. I don't want to get into the trolls too much because, seriously, I find you very amusing. But sometimes you just need a kick in the head, and I'd be happy to give it to you on more than one occasion. So yeah, that's my take on what's happening. We're going to find ourselves under a trident of power Trump, Putin, and Xi. That will be a 3-month time frame, I think. And in that 3 months, we will be given the direction to gaining new government, to gaining what we require, because nobody who's in government will be there. They certainly won't be allowed to be in government again, even if they've managed to survive the noose. So, yeah, we need good people. We need a much smaller government, much smaller government. I do stand with Ricardo. We could have a government 10% the size it currently is and still make it very effective. If the decisions that needed to be made, like the Parliament now has to sit down and argue about, well, if those need to be made and they are affecting us, shouldn't we get to vote on them individually, each one? And then the country can say yes or no any given day or night on any given question. Yes, we support it. No, we don't. And with that sort of guidance coming from your constituency, then those in government should find it very easy to follow the people's wishes. Yes, there will be, I'm sure, bureaucratic things that need to be sorted out. But the bureaucracy will be much smaller than it currently is, and it will have no power. It will do what it's told by the people. It will not create policy. It will not enforce policy. It will not be a shadow government, which is what it is today. And we can't do that without military help, folks. That is the key to it all. We need military help, and we need it now. Sooner rather than later. Oh, I won't say that. I was going to say more violent. No. We just need it cleaned up. We just need it cleaned up. And I'm looking forward to the end of NATO too, Appy. NATO will come to a very, very, very loud bang and end. I think that's what we're going to see with that. All right, folks, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thursday's our day. You probably won't get a show out of me Thursday night. Don't know. We'll just see. It really depends on what happens. We don't know at what time of the day all of this is going to go down or happen. So it might be all day. I don't know. So Thursday could be a bit dodgy. Friday we'll be back on again. And tomorrow night, well, one or two things could happen tomorrow night. One guest or two. We will wait and find out. But there will be a show tomorrow night. I promise you that. To everybody who's reached out to me and passed on thoughts, feelings, and love for Laura, thank you. Thank you so much. The amount of people praying for her, for us, I guess, at the moment, is overwhelming. Thank you for everyone's support. It's a big thing for me to see this sort of support. It's a huge thing for her. She's never seen that. She doesn't watch the show a great deal, but she sees every text message and every email that I get that relates to her. I show her, and she's humbled by the fact that she's in so many of your thoughts at this time. I'm going to have to hold my tongue on Thursday. Otherwise, I could say something that might enable this prick to, well, not be sentenced as harsh as he could be. But the biggest problem that we have had with this whole thing is that there are people who've been looking for Laura, who are associated with him. So this has caused her a large amount of anxiety. On top of other things. And we are working to make sure that should anybody bother coming to the courthouse to introduce themselves, they're going to have a very bad day. So thank you to everybody who's offered their prayers, thoughts, and who's offered to help, who's offered to come and help keep an eye on us, or keep an eye on Laura. Thank you. I have some people who are doing that for us, and these are people well, let's just say they're good people. They're good people. I'm looking forward to Thursday. It'll be I hope, a red letter day for Laura, where she'll be able to draw a line under this. She'll regain some power out of it, some self-power, I mean, and maybe it will help with the anxiety a bit. So that's our hope. I just want to draw a line under this. I'd rather put a line through him, but I can't do that. He's locked up. But he's facing a lot of charges, not just to do with us, but he's facing a lot of other charges as well. He's fighting them all individually, so you can see what his plan is there. We'll bring you up to date as best we can after Thursday, but I just wanted to tell you that the love, the feelings that we've got coming to us, the prayers, the phone calls, the emails, the texts. Thank you, everybody who has got us in your thoughts this week. It means the world to me. It means the world to Laura. And by way of repayment, folks, you can be absolutely guaranteed, I will fight for you with every breath in my body until there is no breath in it left. And even then, I'm still going to have a go at the dickheads on the roads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!